America, we are a body with a founding wound. This wound is not all that we are. When I say body, I mean a collective with a dream of work that is meaningful, enough food and shelter and welcome for all, and more than enough, even. But this collective, this body has suffered long with a wound. It is a wound from birth. And we seek a healer for our wound. Oh God, we seek an expert from above. And our helplessness as the wound spreads, as the bandages are uncovered and all is fully revealed, we want explanations. Until this year, I haven't given very much thought to Epiphany. January 6th, the day Christians commemorate the first manifestation of Jesus Christ to the Gentiles. From the Greek epiphania, meaning manifestation, or according to Merriam-Webster, a sudden manifestation of the essential nature of something. Epiphany, a sudden manifestation of the essential nature of something. I'd like to read just a little bit of the book of Matthew to you. That's this week's reading for Christians across the world, Matthew 2. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened. Then Herod secretly called for the wise men, and he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for this child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. So let us consider the wisdom of the Magi, these wise men who were most likely not 3 but legion, and most likely not only men either. What made them wise? Well, they were wise to follow a star, a prophecy of new leadership. They were wise to become overwhelmed with joy at this possibility of freedom and peace for all. They were wise to kneel down and greet a vulnerable baby born into poverty and give him gifts typically reserved for kings. Especially, they were wise to follow their dream to fulfillment, to subvert the order of the king and let the baby and thus their dream survive. This was their epiphany. An epiphany is a manifestation of an intuition, an idea that takes hold and fulfills itself after great spiritual preparation. And on this January 6th Epiphany, we saw one manifestation of our founding wound. A birthing wound that erupted as the body of this nation was formed. The wound of despoliation of the land, of domination, colonialism, subjugation, stolen land, slavery, a wound as old as the body itself. On this Epiphany, we saw the manifestation of a fascist demagogue who has spent his entire presidential term harnessing the dream of white rage in order to terrorize our elected leaders and attempt a coup. In the coming days, we will need to repeat the fact of this manifestation for those who might seek to downplay the events of Wednesday or spin them into something cuter or more benign, or attempt to distance those events from the sitting president. With all the wisdom of the Magi, we will need to begin to use the proper terms of things, to know that words manifest the reality of our body, our collective, which is still wounded. So allow me to use the proper terms. Our president is a fascist, and his enablers and supporters are supporters of fascism. He must be removed from office as soon as possible and barred from ever running again. And his supporters in the Senate and in the House must at the very least be censured, but hopefully they must be removed for suggesting this election was mishandled. There is no healing a wound without accountability. That is the only path towards healing. Anything less, and the wound will continue to deepen and spread. 5 people perished on Wednesday. Our Capitol was desecrated. Our congressional and Senate representatives were traumatized. And honestly, the white supremacists succeeded in slowing down the wheels of the democratic process. They succeeded in troubling the wound. As eyewitnesses and journalists continued to share their stories of the insurrection throughout the week, what's becoming clear is the facts of the day were worse than we had initially understood. Wounded people wound people. We watched in horror as the Capitol Police Force were overpowered or appeared to stand back and allow white insurrectionists to storm into our Capitol. And after this summer of Black Lives Matter protests, we saw firsthand the racist hypocrisy of knowing in our bones how Black people are treated by the police, knowing that if the crowd had been protesting this brutality or even a woman's right to choose, few would have made it out alive. But the body of America survived its woundedness to live another day. If the Magi wanted to follow a light on this epiphany, they would have needed to travel farther south. I'll tell you where they could find that star in the sky, that light. You could find it right here in Georgia, baby. We here in Georgia worked hard to get out the vote, to get people registered to vote. You, UUCA member, you, Unitarian Universalist, you lived your 5th principle in action. Our 5th principle of our faith, which honors the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. You lived your values out loud as you phone banked and wrote postcards and served as poll workers and poll watchers and election defenders. Some of you took your light to the streets to canvass, and on the day of the runoff election, we UUs were known out there in Gwinnett County. You shined out there in Cobb County. Who were those Unitarian Universalists, they asked, in DeKalb and Fulton counties? I personally saw some of you out there on election day, and I was prouder than ever maybe, to be a Unitarian Universalist with you. I was proud to be known by your works and for you to be known by mine. We will not let white supremacist insurrectionists steal our celebration after all of these weeks and months of hard work. We worked for this moment under the leadership of strategists, many of them Black Southern women who sought to take their power back from those who would suppress votes in Georgia and gerrymander and question identities and add barrier after barrier. We all persisted together. So let us reclaim our celebration for this effort. Let us revel in the joy that is owed to us after so much hard work. And the images you saw on the screen earlier, just a fraction of the images from this election season and all the Unitarian Universalists and UUCA members who worked to bring voting justice to our nation and to Georgia. Let us remember that this week also held this epiphany, this manifestation of an intuition that we, the people, could make Georgia anew. This week, I was also reminded of the words of Reverend Theodore Parker, the 19th century Unitarian minister and abolitionist, who wrote, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice." These words were later paraphrased and made famous by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And my friend Reverend Laura Bogle points out that for Unitarian Universalists, this may be the hardest aspect of our faith to sustain. But what a deep faith it takes in the middle of these hard and scary times to continue to believe that out of evil and chaos, righteousness and justice can yet emerge. If we, as Unitarian Universalists, have crises of faith, this may be the most common one. Not a crisis that questions whether there is or is not a God, but a crisis of faith that wonders whether anything we do makes a difference, whether things actually get better or not. We do not always see the events taking place as evidence that the arc is bending towards justice, not with our own sight. And it certainly won't take shape without our own hands working to make it so. It is not inevitable. The way forward is often mysterious and shadowed by the heartbreak and hatred of the past. In the same day that our very democracy came under attack by violent white supremacist forces, the people of Georgia elected our very first African American senator and our first Jewish senator. These events are not unconnected. Both were epiphanies of a kind. As people of faith, we affirm the democratic process. We uphold a vision of a multiracial, pluralistic, equitable society. We must continue to hold the hope that anything is possible when we stay rooted in love that holds us and transforms us. We are the healers of our founding wound. The poet Ross Gay says that in almost every instance of our lives, we are, if we pay attention, in the midst of an almost constant, if subtle, caretaking, holding open doors, offering elbows at crosswalks, letting someone else go first, helping with the heavy bags, reaching what's too high or what's been dropped, pulling someone back to their feet. This caretaking is our default mode, and it is always a lie that convinces us to act or believe otherwise, always. Reverend Robin Bartlett reminds us never to let the rulers of nations tell you that your default mode is war or division or separation or alienation. That is the lie of those who try to traumatize you into submission. You may feel small, scared, numb, angry, and powerless, but you are beloved. You are a child of the universe. Your default mode is caretaking. Loved people love people. So go out and love some more people. And know that you are loved. That is our task this week. I'd like to close, and that is how America will be. I would like to close with the words of the poet Adrienne Marie Brown, who wrote this week, "We are our only relevant hope. We are our only possible medicine. A body is always a body, wounded, festering, healing, healed. We choose each day what body we will shape with the miraculous material we're gifted. Let us finally attend to the wound. Let us finally name the violence. Let us finally break the cycle of supremacy. Let us finally choose ourselves whole. Let us finally love ourselves whole." May it be so. Amen.